As the second pick in the 2016 NBA draft, Brandon Ingram brought high expectations to LA, but after an inconclusive tenure in Los Angeles, is he poised to break out in New Orleans this year? To begin with, you may not realize that Ingram really played guard for the majority of last season, matching up with opposing guards 2/3 of the time, according to NBA.com matchup data, while shouldering playmaking duties in the pick and roll on offense. His handle is good enough to get him places, and he likes that spin move, but he lacks verticality to finish well at the rim. Ingram finished in the 53rd percentile in rim field goal percentage last year, a bit underwhelming for a 6'9 player with a 7'3 wingspan. He doesn't make up for that lack of hops with strength. He's often bumped off his line like this by sturdier players, and instead Ingram uses length to overcome these quick twitch shortcomings. More importantly, he takes these loping, syncopated steps that throw off a defender's timing. Notice how darn long these things are. It's one step from the free throw line all the way to the hoop. Here he practically skips from the top of the key to the charge circle, but this kind of hopscotch footwork still requires balance and leg strength, and I'm not sure how easy it is for Ingram to become more explosive at the end of these. When his strides are shorter, he has more control after nifty redirectioning. The contact here actually helps him slow down and go left around the defender. Still, a downside of relying on this arrhythmic footwork instead of raw quickness is that sturdy and disciplined defenders can sit on Ingram's two-step and he's basically out of options. There's also a passivity to Brandon at times, and his lack of burst might contribute to this. Here, he's in a classic position to power dribble for a layup or just explode off the catch, but instead he completely retreats and then turns the possession into an awkward 17-footer. On this one, he basically has an uncontested layup, but for some reason tries to leave it for a trailing teammate. Perhaps a bit more body control helps him gather and go up there. On the other hand, he does attack if the lane is largely vacated, and when he lowers his shoulder and isn't rerouted, he can turn the corner on defenders successfully. With a vacant paint, he goes to the spin early here, and then the long, decelerated steps throw off the help. BI is also a regular up fake practitioner, going up and under here before cocking the ball back in midair. He does that regularly, and he uses up fakes in his isolation game to generate a healthy free throw rate, taking about 6 every 75 possessions. Those pump fakes complement his frequent mid-range game. He gets Towns to bite hard at this elbow jumper, and that garden hose arm makes it a short little scoop to the hoop. His height also makes it easy to launch over smaller defenders, and he shot nearly half of his shots from the mid-range this year, hitting a sturdy 43% of them. But a huge chunk of Ingram's offense came off pick and roll, where he sometimes eats up the clock without materializing something worthwhile. Here he has an advantage situation coming off the screen, but he often backs off like this, probing around before dribbling into something completely mediocre. Sometimes he'll come off this screen and settle for long jumpers, despite having space to attack a vulnerable big. This time he does indeed attack downhill with the advantage, and great things happen, but he totally bombs the layup. And to round out the Ingram experience, he'll drive right into the teeth of the D, downshift to those slow-mo strides, bring the ball back and finish in traffic just like it's a drill. His on-ball playmaking is equally inconsistent. He helps set up the screen here by moving right, but then sorta dies on the vine as he misses Zubats on the roll, and then maybe again on a little interior look, and that's 12 seconds the Lakers never got back. He's thinking about the lob play here off this action, and when it's covered, makes a basic kickout, but his passing preoccupation stops him from an easy drive. There's no one covering him anymore. When Brandon's aggressive, good things can happen. Taking it to Adams here brings in another defender, and a sweet no look leads to a layup. Ingram's pick and roll reads are inconsistent though. Here, he has a lob on that slip, but instead turns it into a mid-range miss. Yet in transition, he finds the same pass over the top to McGee. His overall pick and roll game is solid, not spectacular, and a lack of shooting is a clear limitation. Dallas isn't worried about meeting Ingram high because he's not a threat. Note that the aggressive attack does draw help and he lays it off nicely. Ingram is blunted by his lack of pull-up and spot-up shooting, making just 33% of his threes in his career with that deliberate high release. More importantly, he rarely takes threes, and 66% free throw shooting makes it unlikely he'll unlock three-pointers anytime soon. I do think he does some of his best work extending advantage situations with one decisive dribble and an action. This includes attacking closeouts when defenses aren't fully set, and a quick move creates clearer passing angles. This skill helps Ingram retain some value next to superior offensive engines despite a lack of shooting. His athleticism shapes his defense too, where he uses length to overcome a lack of quickness against guards. Those heavy feet get him a bit out of position here, but he somehow yo-yos an arm in from behind and steals this. That's incredible. When he's in position against wings like this, he can size them up like a boxer, using that huge reach to keep him in front of him while bothering their shot. Unlike his offense, this defensive trait actually reminds me of Kevin Durant, where Ingram's reach surprises jump shooting guards while almost always containing their drives. Even when partially beat, his wingspan makes finishing tricky for smaller penetrators. Although that lack of agility does make it hard for him to change directions once he gets going, and that's particularly noticeable in screening action where shifting from side to side happens in slow motion. This can be a problem too when he's chasing shooters off ball, where bypassing multiple screens often requires agility that Ingram lacks. He's not super sturdy either, and that frail build makes him vulnerable to stronger, powerful players. Simmons just walks him down here, and he struggles standing his ground against frontcourt players in the paint. Brandon's also prone to mental lapses. He completely forgets he needs to stay with Nene here, and it's a completely busted coverage. He needs to recognize this help way earlier. I mean, LeBron even has enough time to point it out, and it's a layup. He's not necessarily error-prone, but subtleties like this are a weakness. He needs to cover this back screen and instead watches it unfold while briefly losing his man. On the other hand, Ingram excels at sagging back into the paint and disrupting opposing offenses. His length is invasive here, thwarting a Gobert lob beautifully, but it serves him best pinching down like this, where he bothers shots around the paint and then can switch onto any wing, where again he can hold his own in isolation. That reach allows for long digs, and these turnovers up at the elbow often lead to easy runouts the other way. In a defense that can cover his mobility and off-ball weaknesses, Ingram's perimeter versatility and presence at the elbows could be a significant plus. In that vein, I actually think a reasonable comparison for Ingram is old Laker guard Michael Cooper, who used his size on defense and had enough vision to handle secondary playmaking duties paired with a passable outside shot. Ingram's scoring game is stronger, but I think he needs to make major strides as a shooter if he ever really wants to level up there, and given that difficulty, it's hard to see him as a decent offensive centerpiece. So he'll have to polish complementary skills like passing to become a good tertiary option on a high-level offense. Impact metrics still cast him down in steerage class, and while I think that's a touch pessimistic, they illuminate how far Ingram has to go entering year 4 to really be an impactful offensive player. Overall, I do think he'd do very well to finish 2020 as a top 75 player in the NBA, and even one day to peak at a sub-All-Star level. I actually touch on Ingram briefly in my latest podcast with Danny LaRue. It's on 2020 breakout players, link in the description below. If you're interested in the proprietary stats in these videos, they're available at patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. Thanks to all my wonderful subscribers for making this channel possible. And as always, I hope you're all having a great day.